Hey investor friends, I'm Michelle Markey, and today I'm going to talk about the 6 best bank accounts of 2021 that have both a checking and savings account for your everyday short-term cash needs like paying your bills or saving up for an emergency fund. And while we may never see interest rates of 10% like we last saw in the 1980s ever again, I've got you covered with your best money-making options for this year using a checking account and or a savings account. And I've done this comparing different options online using a certain set of criteria, so I hope you enjoy. And I just want to reassure you that none of this content is sponsored. I'm just some person on the internet who's looking out for the best interest of you and myself because I like paying little to no fees while making the most amount of money in my everyday banking needs. And if you also like saving and making the most amount of money possible, I'd love if you could please like and subscribe to my video and YouTube channel because it lets me know that you're interested in the content that I'm making, and I greatly appreciate it. Thanks. Before I get into the criteria of why I selected the 6 best banks for this year, I want to explain a little bit about what a prime rate is and how this relates to the Federal Reserve's Fed funds rate, and it's also known as a benchmark rate. So the Federal Reserve, led by Chairman Jerome Powell, sets interest rates for the economy so that it can either stimulate it with lower interest rates or rein in inflation by increasing interest rates. And what's called the federal funds rate is the rate that banks can lend to each other. And then the rate that they lend to consumers like you and I for our mortgages or for credit cards is what's known as the prime rate. And this rate is usually around 3% above the benchmark or federal funds rate. So right now, the federal funds rate is around 0 to 0.25%, while the prime rate as measured by the Wall Street Journal is around 3.25%. And now this doesn't mean that every bank has to use this prime rate. They can use different prime rates that they choose to use. Like sometimes we've seen mortgages be as low as 2.77% or 2.87%, and that's pretty low, maybe as low as it's ever going to get. But then we don't end up getting a lot of interest when we're trying to save up in our savings accounts or money market accounts, which are sort of interchangeable, and definitely not that much in our checking account. So not that I ever expected much interest rates in my checking accounts, because that's really just supposed to be for paying for my bills or routing money to my brokerage accounts. But in my savings and money market accounts, I used to remember days when I could get maybe 3 to 4% interest when I was much younger. And nowadays, I'm lucky if I can even get 0.3% or maybe 0.5% if I want to get a better money market account. But just keep this in mind that we're at record low interest rates. So maybe things will get better in the coming years as the Fed might raise interest rates. But for now, this is what the best that we can do is for 2021. When I was comparing and contrasting various bank offerings and features, I judged them based on 8 main criteria of whether there were any account minimums to either open the account or to maintain on an ongoing basis, or if there were any account maintenance or service monthly fees, and if there were any interest rates for the checking and or savings accounts respectively, and if there were any ATM fees or overdraft fees, brick and mortar locations, and if they were part of the RealTime Payments network, and I'll explain what that means. And this is just based on my personal experience and what I've looked up online recently. This isn't financial advice, but I think that if you were to consider some of these same criteria, you'll be much more satisfied with your final banking choices. So with that being said, and in no particular order of preference, they just happen to be organized this way on the table I created that I'm about to show you shortly. They are Capital One, Ally Bank, Discover, Redneck Bank, Charles Schwab, and Chase. And you're probably wondering, is Redneck Bank really a bank? Yes, it is. Like, you can visit their website and it shows that they're FDIC insured. So that means that your money is safe up to $250,000 of a deposit by the US federal government. And also you can see funny caricatures on their website, and that shouldn't make you feel concerned, even though you might see a little squirrel running around with some money, or a pig or a goat or a horse neighing. Don't let any of that deter you from thinking that this is a pretty decent bank, because I checked it out, and even though I don't personally use it, it's something to definitely consider. In the following table, I bolded or underlined what I perceive to be the best attributes of each of these banks, And I started out with listing the first 5 of 6 banks that didn't have any minimum account balances. And the only exceptions were with the Redneck Bank, where in order to open their money market, aka savings account, you needed to open it with $500 minimum. And with Chase Checking, you don't have any monthly fees if you can either have $500 plus of direct deposits in a month or keep a minimum daily balance of $1,500. And there's also some other conditions, but I won't get into them here. And with the account maintenance fees, we can see that Capital One, Ally, Discover, Redneck Bank, and even Charles Schwab all have 0 maintenance fees for having a checking account. But with Schwab, you need to have a Schwab brokerage account in order to have a free checking account. And it's also no fees for having a savings account with Charles Schwab, so that's pretty cool. But we can see with Chase, in order to waive the $12 monthly fee, and that's for checking, or to waive the $5 monthly fee for savings, we need to have certain conditions met. So that's the only drawback behind Chase, is to have these maintenance fees. But if you meet certain financial conditions, you would be able to have these accounts. Like if you have a job and you're able to get direct deposits on a consistent basis, like usually you get 1 or 2 paychecks a month, so then this might not be a big deal to you if you were to go for something like Chase. And then moving on to interest rates, we can see that Capital One, their checking account, has an interest rate of only 0.1%. And this is actually not half bad, considering others like Chase have 0% in their checking, and the same with Discover, which I couldn't find if Discover had any interest rate for its checking, so I just assumed it didn't have any. And then Charles Schwab likes to call their checking account high yield, but that's still pretty low at 0.03%. And then for Redneck Bank, this actually seemed to be the most attractive in having 0.6% up to $10,000 in your checking account. And if you have over $10,000, then you're only going to get 0.15%. And then Ally was also pretty decent at having 0.1% up to $15,000 and 0.25% on over $15,000 in your checking account. So across all of these, I think one of the bigger winners, if you have a lower balance, is Redneck Bank. But if you have a higher balance above $15,000, then maybe you might want to consider Ally Bank. And then for the savings accounts, we can see that the best one just numerically is Ally Bank right now at 0.5%. But close seconds would be Capital One, Discover, and Redneck Bank with 0.4%. And we can see, again, there's a threshold that the Redneck Bank's money market will only go up to $50,000 that you can invest at 0.4%. And if you're over that amount, it's only 0.15%. So that's something to keep in mind if you're having a lot of money that you're trying to save up in a savings account. And unfortunately, Charles Schwab is pretty low at 0.05%, and Chase is also pretty low at 0.01%. So that might not be the biggest draw to have these last 2 types of accounts if you want to have the maximum savings account interest rate right now. And back in the better days, like even a few years ago, I remember when online banks like Capital One and Ally and Discover and even some others may have had interest rates that were at least 1.5%, if not above the 2% mark. So you shouldn't give up hope, because hopefully someday interest rates of at least 2% for a savings account will be higher in the future, and I'm looking forward to that point in time. And then moving on to ATM fees, we can see that many of these are no-fee ATMs if you use the ATMs that are within the networks of these banks. So with Capital One, you can usually have 0 ATM fees if you're using Capital One ATM machines, but they also have 70,000 fee-free ATMs that you can go to. And I don't know which ones they are, but I'm sure there's an ATM locator on their website. And in a similar way, I'm sure Ally, Discover, Redneck Bank can also show you which of the ATMs in your area would not have any fees if you use them. But with some of them, you just need to keep in mind that, let's say with Ally Bank, since there's no brick and mortar locations, you will only be able to use their no-fee all-point ATMs, so you got to find those. And otherwise, they offer a $10 reimbursement for other ATMs that you might use. And with Redneck Bank, you might be eligible for some of the ATM fee refunds. Like for some reason, I could only see on their website that they would refund $25 for foreign transaction ATM fees. So that was a little bit curious because it makes me wonder how much of domestic or American ATM fees are they refunding, or how do you know which ones are really the free ATMs that you can use? So definitely look into that, and I'm pretty sure they also have an ATM locator on their website too. And then for Charles Schwab, this is actually pretty awesome because they have unlimited ATM fee rebates and no foreign transaction fees. So this means that if you use a Charles Schwab debit card all around the world, you will never have any fees. And I know this from personal experience that they reimburse any international ATM fees that you also may have had. So that's pretty awesome because who wants to pay extra fees if you don't have to? So I didn't notice that many other banks having this unlimited no ATM fee situation. So that's something to keep in mind. And then for Chase, you have 0 fees for using Chase's 16,000 ATMs. So if you're in an area that has Chase banks or their ATMs, then you're in luck. But if not, then maybe this might not be the right one for you. And then when it comes to overdraft fees, the best two are Ally and Discover at $0 for overdraft fees. So if you find that this is a big deal for you, if your checking account is constantly being overdrawn, or you might experience non-sufficient funds, then you may want to consider going with a bank that doesn't slap you with overdraft fees like the other ones do, where Capital One has $35, Redneck is at $25, and same with Charles Schwab, and then Chase is at $34. So just keep that in mind if you want to avoid this kind of fee. And then when it comes to brick and mortar locations, I think one of the best attributes is the fact that Capital One and Chase have actual physical locations, because I tend to find a lot of loose change on the streets. So I like being able to go into a physical brick and mortar location and be able to exchange all that dirty money I found on the floor and be able to get clean money out of that. So I like going to brick and mortar locations every now and then, but there's nothing wrong with online banks. Like, I think they're pretty awesome and I use them also. And so we can see that Ally Bank, Discover, Redneck Bank are only online, and Charles Schwab is mostly only online. They have a few locations that you can go to, but they're not as plentiful as some of the more common brick and mortar banks that you and I are very familiar with. And then when it comes to real-time payments, just to explain what the real-time payments network is, this is where, imagine if you're using apps like Venmo, you can send money to someone in real time and they can see it on their end, on their app, and have that money right away. But that usually comes with a fee. So for the first time ever recently, it seems like some of these popular banks are starting to be part of this real-time payments network. So I think that's pretty awesome because I'm able to send money to other people in real time and they can get it right away. And also, if I want to exchange money between some of my bank accounts, then that might be a pretty nice perk if I can send in real time and then right away. Instead of having earnings of 0% in a checking account, maybe I can transfer my money to a money market account that's earning way more interest. So being able to do that in real time after I get paid from my paychecks, and then I can just transfer that money in real time, is a big advantage that in the past I used to have to go to the brick and mortar locations, physically withdraw the money and then put it in another bank on the same day, instead of having to wait 3 or 4 business days for the bank to transfer that money online. So I think that this is a big push towards trying to compete with a lot of popular apps like Venmo and other cash apps that are able to send money in real time. And I think that this is going to become a more popular feature, not just among Chase and Capital One customers, but among many other banks. Like, I know Bank of America is also part of the real-time payments network. So with all that, I hope that this was pretty helpful to keep in mind of which banks to consider based on these 8 criteria. And I find that this is really helpful to go by if I want to ever consider opening new accounts. And then one last thing to also note when it comes to these accounts, I noted with Chase that there is an account opening bonus right now of $225, which I find to be pretty cool because in the past these opening bonuses were a lot lower. And if you go for an account opening bonus, just to put it in context, you would have to invest in Ally Bank $45,000 just to get at a 0.5% interest rate, the same $225 of account opening bonus that you're getting with Chase. So even though it may not at first seem as attractive as the other 5 here, If you want to go for an account opening bonus, that's one of the best ways to get immediate interest in a pretty short amount of time by participating in their checking account offering. And I think that that's a pretty good deal. So I try to be on the lookout for other types of accounts that offer account opening bonuses. Those were my 6 best banks of 2021 that offer you double the fun of a checking and savings account and could even offer you triple the fun if you choose to get a credit card or brokerage account with some of them. And you can do one-stop shopping for all your banking and investing needs. And if you'd like to mix and match with some other types of accounts, some other honorable mentions I'd like to share include how you could check out lists from places like NerdWallet for their checking account and the same with Bankrate for their checking account, as well as there are other sites like for savings accounts. You could look at NerdWallet's list for that, as well as Bankrate's list of savings accounts. And also even Investopedia has a list of high yield savings accounts, which is aka money market accounts sometimes. So they're pretty interchangeable. Just keep that in mind for the most part. And then if you don't want to go with any of those options, you could also consider a regional credit union in your area that usually just gets members from the neighboring states, and they may have better deals and offers than big banks might, and sometimes you even have better loan rates with a local credit union than using a big bank. So just keep that in mind as another potential option to do some banking. And if you enjoyed this video or learned something, please like and subscribe, and I wish you well on your journey to reaching financial freedom. Till next time.